I remember that Saturday as if each were carved into my skin, a day I could never wash away no matter how many showers I took. It started with the kind of light that made you think nothing bad could happen, the kind of golden morning sun that slips through the blinds, dances across the floor like a promise. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, trying to convince myself that today as a family gathering at my husband's parents' house would be like any other awkward small talk, forced smiles, a few hours of pretending we were all closer than we really were. I told myself I could get through each, that it did just keep my head down, laugh when appropriate, let him do the talking. But even as I turned to get into my mug, there was this tiny, sharp feeling in my chest, a warning that he didn't want to acknowledge. The drive over was quiet. He had the radio on, but low enough that I could hear the tap of his fingers against the steering wheel, a steady rhythm that seemed to say more than words. He didn't look at me, not once, as if I were just part of the scenery outside his window. I tried to ask him if everything was okay, but he only nodded, his lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That's the thing about him, his smiles were always perfect for other people, but never for me. When we arrived, the house was already alive with voices. His family had a way of filling every corner with noisy laughter that was a little too loud, questions that felt like tests you couldn't pass, eyes that darted over you as if measuring, weighing your worth. He'd been married to him for almost 10 years, and still, I felt like an outsider in that house. My daughter, Emma, clung to my hand at first, her small fingers curling into my palm like an anchor. She was 12, at that age where she was half child, half woman, with eyes that saw far more than anyone realized. We made our way to the living room, where his parents were holding court on the big couch, and everyone else was scattered around like pieces on a game board. I could feel the heat of their attention as we walked in, could almost hear the silent tally of my appearance, my posture, my worth. He released my hand without looking, stepping forward to greet them with open arms, and I followed, habitually, as if I were part of the background. The afternoon unfolded in a blur of foodie chatter. I sat beside Emma, smiling when someone glanced our way, nodding at conversations you wasn't really part of. I kept thinking, just a few more hours, just breathe through it. But the air felt thicker every time I caught his gaze when he looked at me. There was no warmth, only something cold, sharp, waiting. It happened over dessert. I was mid-bite of a slice of pie when his mother made some comment about how lucky he was to have a wife who tries her best in the kitchen, and before I could even laugh it off, he jumped in. With a smirk that seemed rehearsed, he said, "Tries is the right word. You should see the disaster she calls dinner. I don't know how Evie survived this long." The room erupted in laughter. His brothers, his cousins, even his parents chuckled along. It was a joke to them, but not to me. The sound of their laughter crawled under my skin like 1,000 tiny needles. My face burned, my hands went cold, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I looked at him, waiting for some sign that he was only teasing, that he'd reach over and touch my arm, make it clear he didn't mean it. But he just sat back, grinning like he'd scored a point in some invisible game. I felt Emma's eyes on me. She wasn't laughing. She was staring at him, her jaw tight, her little hands balled into fists in her lap. I reached for her under the table, just a light squeeze, a silent plea to let it go, to not make this worse. But there the room had shifted. I could feel something building, like the moment before a storm breaks, and I knew, deep down, that whatever was about to happen would change everything. That was the moment, the quiet before the cracky, the breath before the truth. I swear, even now, I can still hear the way the room seemed to hold itself still, waiting. The laughter didn't stop right away. It rippled through the room like a wave that refused to die though, each chuckle and snort pressing harder against my chest. I sat there, frozen, the taste of pie now like a dust in my mouth. I wanted to swallow, to say something, to push the moment away with my own joke, but my voice was gone. He had taken each from me with one careless sentence and an audience eager to see me squirm. My husband had always had a knack for making me the punchline, but each was usually small, harmless digs at least. That's what I told myself. Night teasing, he called it. You hito sensitive, he did say if I ever flinched. But this chimney was different. There was a sharpness to it, a deliberate edge. This wasn't teasing. This was a catch image for others to see. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears as the conversation moved on without me. Someone started talking about a new restaurant opening in town. The laughter was replaced by chatter about menus and reservations. But you wasn't a part of that world anymore. I was sitting in the same room, breathing the same air, yet I felt miles away adrift in the space he had pushed me into. I glanced at him again. Her eyes were fixed on her plate, but her lips were pressed into a hard line, the kind of expression they only seen when she was trying to stop herself from speaking out of turn. She'd always been fiery. My girl had a spine of steel, but she'd also inherited my awareness of how words could shatter a moment. Right then, though, I knew she was holding onto something. I prayed she would keep it. And then, as if the universe wanted to make sure the knife went deeper, he leaned back in his chair, looked directly at me. He said, "You know, I should start giving cooking lessons to keep us both alive. Maybe then you'll to have to hide takeout containers in the trash so no one notices." The words dropped into the room like stones. There was a beach of silence just long enough for the sting to register before his brothers burst out laughing again. His father joined in this chimney. Even his mother shook her head with that half smile she wore when she thought her son was being charming. But Ichi wasn't charming. Ichi was cruel. In that moment, I felt something shift inside me, something I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was colder than that, quieter. It was the feeling of watching someone you thought you knew pull off your mask, revealing a face you couldn't love anymore. I tried to hold his gaze, but he didn't even look at me after that. He had moved on, turning to his cousin to talk about sports, as if he had just thrown me to the wolves. My hands shook under the table. I gripped the napkin in my lap until each twisted into a tight rope. I thought about saying something, calling him out, telling him exactly what I thought, but every time I opened my mouth, the words tangled together and died in my throat. Instead, I felt the tears prickling at the back of my eyes. I hated myself for it. I didn't want him to see me cry. I didn't want them to see me cry. So I stared at my plate, forcing my breathing into slow, steady counts, willing myself to stay composed. The rest of the table faded into a blur of voices and clicky utensils. I could barely hear them anymore. All I could hear was the echo of his words, looping in my head, growing louder each chimney. I kept wondering, was this who he really was? Or had he been this way all along? I had just been too blind, too in love, too willing to excuse it. That's when I felt him a shift beside me. It was a small movement, but it pulled me back into the room. She straightened in her chair, her shoulders sitting like she was preparing for battle. My heart tugged in my chest. I wanted to reach for her hand, to stop her before she did something she couldn't take back, but it was too late. He had crossed the line, and my daughter had noticed. The air in the room felt heavier now, as if the oxygen had thinned. Every breath came with effort. I could sense the shift, not just in me, but in the space around us. Conversations stumbled over themselves, laughter faltered in small hiccups. Though people tried to steer the moment back to lightness, the undercurrent of discomfort lingered like a shadow no one wanted to acknowledge. I wasn't imagining it. I saw it in the way his cousin avoided looking at me when I glanced over, in the way one of his sisters suddenly busied herself refilling water glasses even though no one had asked. They might have laughed with him a moment ago, but they heard the edge in his tone too. It was the kind of cruelty that even the most polite people can completely ignore. It's true, no one said anything. That's the thing about family dynamics, they like a stage play everyone has been casting since birth. His family had learned their line as well. Laugh when he laughs, Esmaou when he jabs, pretend nothing is wrong when someone is feliz get trampled. It kept the peace, at least for them. For me, it felt like being trapped in a script I never agreed to read. Emma was still quiet beside me, but I could feel her energy changing. Her small foot tapped lightly under the table, not in nervousness but in a kind of restless readiness, like a runner waiting for the starter pistol. I knew that look in her eye was the same one she got in school plays just before her cue, when she did take a deep breath and step into the spotlight. Except this wasn't a stage, and there were no lines to rehearse. I caught her eye for the briefest second. In what I saw there made my stomach tighten. It wasn't just anger, it was resolve. My daughter had always been fiercely protective of the people she loved, and she had a radar for injustice that could pierce through any polite silence. She'd seen me shrinking into myself for the past hour, absorbing jab after jab, and she'd had enough. The problem was, I didn't know what she planned to do about it. Around the table, the mood was a strange blend of forced cheer and something more brittle. His mother tried to talk about summer plans, asking if we'd be coming to the lake house in August, but the question barely landed before his brother steered the conversation to a fishing trip. It was all filler, all noisy to keep from acknowledging the tension sitting in the center of the table like a storm cloud. And then, just as I thought maybe Emma would keep her GHE, my husband made it worse. He chuckled at something his cousin said, then glanced at me with that smirk that had been needling me all afternoon. You know, he said, his voice dripping with mock sympathy, maybe you could take a class or to be for the lake trip. Then we won't all have to suffer through your cooking. This Jimmy, the laugh that followed was smaller, hesitant. Even his brother seemed to sense they'd reached some kind of limit, but he didn't notice or didn't care. My face burned, not from shameless Jimmy, but from a kind of simmering heat I didn't recognize in myself. I felt my jaw tighten, my fingers curl against my knee. But before I could even open my mouth, Emma moved. She sat up straighter, her chair scraping softly against the floor, and the sound catch through the room. Heads turned toward her almost instinctively, as if everyone knew something was about to happen. My husband looked at her with mild amusement, like Emma watching a puppy trying to bark. He had no idea. The room fell quiet, not completely, but enough. Enough for me to hear the quick rhythm of my own heartbeat. Enough for me to see the flicker of curiosity, even unease, in a few faces around the table. Emma's gaze was fixed on him now, unwavering. She was small, but in that moment, she seemed taller somehow, as if she'd grown into a space she'd been saving for just this occasion. I wanted to tell her to stop, to not give them more reason to whisper about US latte. But I couldn't find the words. Maybe because deep down, a part of me wanted her to go on. A part of me wanted anyone to say the things he hadn't been able to. And then, in that suspended moment, I realized something. The shockwave had already started. It wasn't what she'd said she hadn't spoken yet, it was in the way the balance in the room shifted, in the way I started between her and her father, in the subtle awareness that something irreversible was about to unfold. Whatever Emma was about to say, I knew it would land in the center of this family like a stone dropped into still water. And when it did, the ripples would reach everyone at this table, whether they liked it or not. The silence before Emma spoke was unlike any they ever felt. It wasn't the comfortable kind of quiet you get when people are eating or thinking. It was a taut, umbilical stillness, the kind that makes the air feel heavier, the kind that pulls everyone's attention into one single point. Every eye was on her. Even those who had been leaning back in their chairs now sat forward, as if their bodies sensed something their minds hadn't yet caught up to. Emma looked at him the way you'd look at a puzzle you've finally solved, her head slightly tilted, her lips pressed together in thought. There was no fear in her eyes, only clarity. I don't know how she found it, how a 12-year-old could be so certain in a room full of adults, but she sat there, hands folded in her lap, and let the moment stretch just long enough for him to start feeling it. You know, she said finally, her voice calm, almost conversational, It's really weird how you always make fun of mom when your family is around. They once hit the table like a dropped glass. You could hear the tiniest intake of breath from someone down the line, the subtle rustle of fabric as people shifted in their chairs. My husband's smirk faltered not much, but enough for me to see the crack. Emma didn't stop. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze never wavering. I mean, you don't do it when it's just us at home. At home you he different. So, why do you do it now? Is it because you think they really like you more if you make her look bad? There it was. The blown one had seen coming. She didn't yell, didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The quiet honesty of her words catch deeper than any insult ever could. They were the kind of words that couldn't be brushed off as a joke or explained away. They lingered, demanding an answer he didn't seem ready to give. I watched the color drain from his face not all at once, but in stages, like the slow fading of a photograph left in the sun. His eyes darted briefly toward his mother, then back to Emma, as if searching for some lie, some escape hatch. None came. The rest of the family seemed frozen in place, their spoons halfway to their mouths, their expressions stuck somewhere between shock and discomfort. His younger brother cleared his throat, probably thinking he could break the tension with a new topic, but no one picked it up. The silence wasn't letting go. Emma's voice softened, but it didn't lose its edge. I just think it is strange. You say you love her, but if you really did, you wouldn't laugh when other people are laughing at her. You wouldn't be the reason they are laughing at her. My throat tightened, and I felt something hot press against the backs of my eyes. I didn't know whether to be proud or terrified. Proud because she had spoken the truth so plainly, with a courage I wished I had. Terrified because truth like that can shatter things sometimes in ways you can put back together. He finally spoke, but his voice lacked the easy confidence he'd worn all afternoon. Emma, it's just joking around. You don't understand. Yes, I do. She didn't let him finish. The interruption was deliberate, steady. I understand enough to know Moesi not laughing. I understand enough to know that when you care about someone, you don't keep doing something that hurts them just because it makes you look funny. No one moved. No one dared. It was as if the entire room had been pulled into a vacuum where sound couldn't escape. Even his mother, who always had something to say, stayed silent, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. He leaned back in his chair, and for a fleeting second, I thought he might try to laugh it off, to turn Emma's words into another punchline. But then he saw me watching him, really watching, and maybe for the first time in years, he seemed unsure of himself. His lips parted, but nothing came out. Emma sat back in her seat, not in victory, but in finality. She didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone else, just picked up her fork and returned to her dessert as if she'd said nothing unusual at all. The rest of us, though, knew we'd just witnessed something irreversible. I took a slow breath, feeling the weight in my chest shift, not vanish, but move. In that moment, I realized Emma hadn't just defended me, she'd drawn a line in the sand. A line that, once crossed, changes how you see someone forever. I've seen my husband in a lot of moods over the years, angry, smug, playful, distant, but I had never seen him like this. It wasn't just the color draining from his face. It was the way his entire posture seemed to shift, like someone had quietly pulled the ground out from under him. He sat there, staring at Emma, and for the first time, he didn't seem to have the perfect comeback, the smooth recovery, the practiced deflection. It was as if her words had stripped him down to something raw, something human, and he didn't know how to hide it. His jaw tightened. I could see the muscle twitch just under the skin. He tried to smile, but it wasn't his usual confident grin. It was thinner, forced, the kind of smile someone wears when they've been caught off guard and are scrambling for a way to reassert themselves. His eyes flicked toward his family, searching for someone to break the moment, to laugh, to take his side. But the room had gone heavy, no one was moving. I noticed his mother Essie hands. She was holding her teacup, but her knuckles were white from gripping each toe tightly. His father avoided looking at him altogether, staring instead at the table as if he could roll himself invisible. Even his brothers, always quick to back him up, kept their eyes low, pretending to be interested in crumbs on their plates. The audience he did counted on to laugh with him had vanished, replaced by a circle of people silently watching him squirm. MIS words were still hanging in the air, like the echo of a bell that refuses to fade. I realized why he looked so pale. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was exposure. She had said out loud what I had never dared to, what his family had likely always suspected but never acknowledged, that his jokes were harmless, that they came at my expense, that they revealed something about him he didn't want anyone to see. He cleared his throat, a small, dry sound that only made the tension more obvious. Emma, he started again, his voice softer this time, but it wavered. You don't understand how adults talk to each other sometimes. It is just teasing. That is how we all joke around. It might have worked if he'd said it with conviction, if he'd delivered it in the easy, charming tone he used on strangers. But there was a thin crack in his voice, a tremor that betrayed him. Everyone heard it. I could see it in their faces. They were buying it. Emma didn't even look up from her dessert. Maybe, she said quietly, but I think adults should know when to stop. It was almost casual, but it was the final twist of the knife. She hadn't just called him out, she had left him with no exit that didn't make him look smaller than he already did. The pale look deepened. His usual flush of confidence was gone, replaced by a kind of grayish stillness. I could almost hear his thoughts scrambling, trying to figure out how to patch the hole she'd just punched through his image. But there was no patching this. You can tell a truth. You can tell the moment when the person who always controlled the narrative loses their grip. The rest of the table stayed painfully still. No one moved to speak, no one tried to change the subject. Even the clinking of silverware had stopped. It felt as though everyone was waiting to see what he would do next, as if the whole hierarchy of the family was hanging in the balance. Amy, I was watching closely, not out of cruelty, but because I wanted to remember this. Not to gloat, but to understand. For years, I had let him write the story of who I was in this family. Every jab, every joke, every smirk had been another line in a script he hadn't agreed to. But now, in this quiet, I could feel something shift not just in him, but in me. When he finally looked at me, it wasn't the look of a man in control. It was the look of someone who knew the tide had turned, even if he didn't yet understand how far it would pull him out. His lips pressed together, his pale face giving away more than he realized. There was no anger there, not yet, only the realization that he'd been seen in a way he couldn't undo. I glanced at Emma. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. She had said what needed to be said, and the room had heard it. And as for him, he would never be able to hear her words without feeling this exact moment all over again, the day his daughter made him pale in front of the people who had always laughed with him. The rest of that afternoon felt like living inside a photograph, frozen smiles, stiff poses, a silence that spoke louder than any conversation could. People picked at the last beaches of dessert, cups were refilled, small talk was attempted, but the energy in the room had shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. His family was polite enough to keep the rest of the visit civil, but the undercurrent was undeniable. It was as though MIS words had drawn an invisible line down the middle of the table, one that no one dared to cross. When it was finally time to leave, the goodbyes were brief and oddly formal. His mother hugged me without meeting my eyes. His father gave me a small nod, the kind that feels more like an acknowledgement of a fact than a gesture of warmth. The cousins waved half-heartedly, as if unsure what they were waving goodbye to. I noticed that no one told my husband to come back soon the way they usually did. The drive home was quiet in the kind of way that makes you hyper-aware of every sound of the engine, the soft buzz of the cheetahs against the road, the occasional turn signal clicking like a metronome. Emma sat in the back seat, her gaze fixed out the window, and I could see her reflection in the rearview mirror, calm, steady, but unreadable. My husband's hands were tight on the steering wheel, his knuckles padding the dashboard night. I waited for him to say something, anything, but he didn't. Not a word the entire ride. In that silence, I realized something important. This wasn't just him trying to cool off. This was him recalculating. He wasn't used to being confronted, especially not in front of his family, and he certainly wasn't used to having his daughter be the one to do it. When we got home, Emma went straight to her room without a word. I lingered in the kitchen, pretending to tidy up, waiting to see if he would come in. He tried to start the conversation. Eventually, he did. But instead of an apology, instead of any sign of remorse, what came out was a quiet, almost tentative, "You should be told her not to say that." The sentence landed in my chest like a cold stone. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't upset about what he did done to me. He was upset that someone else had dared to shine a light on it. He wasn't pally anymore. He was guarded, defensive, as if he's still trying to convince himself that what happened wasn't his fault. I could have argued. I could have told him that Emma was right, that she'd simply said what needed to be said, that she'd shown more courage 12 years than he had all the years he'd known him. But he didn't, because for the first time, I understood that my energy was better spent elsewhere, not on defending myself to him, but on protecting the version of myself that Emma still believed in. The days that followed were different in small but telling ways. He didn't make the usual digs at dinner. He didn't throw out casual insults when we were around friends. Though he'd like to believe it was because he'd learned something, I knew better. It wasn't growth, it was caution. He'd been reminded, in front of witnesses, that his words had consequences. Word of what happened spread quietly through his family. I noticed it in the way his sister called me a few days later, her tone softer than usual, asking if I wanted to join her for coffee. I saw it in the way his cousin, who had laughed the loudest that afternoon, avoided meeting my eyes at the next family event. Whatever unspoken hierarchy had existed before was shifting, and though it didn't make everything better, it did make the air around me feel a little less suffocating. As for Emma, she never brought it up again. We didn't have a long heart-to-heart about it, no deep emotional unpacking. But one night, a week after it happened, she hugged me before bed, a longer hug than usual. He whispered, "Evie got you, Mo." That was all. It was enough. Looking back now, I realized that the real aftermath wasn't about him turning palha his family's reaction. It was about something breaking free inside me. That they showed me that the version of myself who stayed silent, who smiled through humiliation, wasn't the only version that could exist. Emma had seen me being diminished, and instead of shrinking, she stood up taller. In doing so, she showed me I could tour. The family still gathers. The jokes still happen, though not in the same way, not with the same edge. Every now and then, I catch my husband glancing at him before he speaks, as if silently weighing the risk. Maybe that is not the apology I deserved, but in its own way, it is a reminder he remembers. And so do we. Don't let this story fade away. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one and love hearing your perspective. If this story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Every view, like, and comment helps our community grow and keeps these powerful stories coming. Together, we can uncover more truths and inspire more hearts one video at a time. Stay tuned, your next favorite story is just around the corner.